here as well. I'm going to include my address for the first time in my description and ask if anybody's really kind out there and can donate me their broken ESCs.
2 hours later. The next day.
Hello and welcome. Today's video is about finally a fix for the cx20 ESCs. A guy named Drew sent me a package and I was able to come up with a fix in a couple of days to do it. So here's the guy here. At the start of the video you saw one smoking. That was an old one I got from somebody else about a year ago. But anyways, I was managed to do it. This version here is cx20 version 2.4b. So I came up with a firmware for this one, and I got brave and I hacked into one of mine and updated it as well. And that version is cx20 version 2b. There's no 4. I still need more, so if anybody has other versions, that would be cool. I did come up with a fix for the other one, but I'm not able to test it because it was already smoked. So there's nothing I can do with that one. So basically, everybody that has the constant beeping sounds and you followed my other video, you followed other people's videos, whatever, probably almost all of them that are just sitting around, you could probably just use my methods in this video and get your ESC working again. I want to be able to program these through the APM as well. I'm sure somebody already came up with it, and if nobody did, I'll come up with it myself. Problem with that is jumping from the APM back to the other software. It'd become kind of a pain in the butt. Besides that, for now, you're going to have to use an Arduino like all my other videos. I'm obsessed with these little guys. They're easy, and they're cheap. So if you have a lot of these guys broken around, it'd be worth just buying just one of these instead of a bunch of new ESCs. So hopefully this helps you guys out finally. I have to thank the guys over at blheli as well. I mean, those guys are awesome. I haven't talked to any of them, but they came up with all the firmware and all the files, all the ink files. Everything's very understandable how to do it. It did take me a lot of tries to finally get it to work, but without them, obviously, it wouldn't be possible. So anyways, I'm going to jump into the video. Alright, so for this project, you're going to need an Arduino. And the pins for this guy here is really simple. Pins you need is D3, D2, and ground. So I'll wire that up. So you can break off 2 of these guys here. Goes in the D2 and D3. Right, so that's the only connections you need to have on this board are these 3 pins. So again, D2, D3, and ground. Next step is going to be installing the software for the Arduino, just to get that out of the way to make sure it's working properly. So open up my package, extract it, whatever, and go into step 1, drivers. If your Arduino is not being detected by Windows, just click on the setup guy and it should get detected. After that's done, go into step 2, go into this guy, blheli, open up this, go to make interfaces, click on Arduino 4-way interface, click OK, pick the one at the top that says multi. I might just delete these 2, but whatever, just double click on this guy, say yes. Okay, so go back to the first menu here, and this time click Read Setup. We're just going to see if the board gets detected, and it didn't. We'll try it again. Okay, if it doesn't, just try unplugging it, and then plugging it back in. And click Read Setup. Okay, so this is the important part here. It has to say this, and it connected successfully. This part's going to fail because we're not connected to an ESC yet, and that'll be the next step I'm going to show you guys now. So the connections here from the Arduino. So the first one here on all the cx20 ESCs, at least the ones I've come across so far, this would be your D2, the first pin. So that's D2, and that one is D3 for the connections there. Alright? So now you just have to be careful when you're soldering because these pads rip off really easy. I actually ripped one off already. If you're in a rush and you move the wire off, you can pop it. So just take your time here. Alternatively, you can, if you have very steady hands, you can get somebody to hold it, or you can hold 2 pins onto those 2 pads and get somebody else to click the buttons. So very carefully, these 2 pins here, just add a little bit more solder to them. Be quick about it. Okay. You might want to use hot glue as well. I usually use this type, and I just kind of solder it right on there like that. But I'll just show you using these instead. Basically, you need any way to get to the Arduino. You don't necessarily have to use these headers if you don't have any jumpers, but just remove the ends on one of them if you do, so you can solder on it. Pre-tin them first. Again, this is important that you're kind of quick with your soldering gun and be very careful. A little bit of flux will be handy here. So very carefully, make sure it doesn't short out on this resistor. Okay, that's good. So if it can hold its own weight, it's good enough. So again, just be careful where you place the glue because you're going to want to remove these wires carefully after. Now if I don't show how to remove the wires, just find a pick or something like this, and instead of trying to rip the wires off the hot glue, you're going to have to use your pencil, heat up the wire like this one first, and kind of just heat it up and lift it out of the way. Then do the same for the next one. Because again, these pads can rip off really easy. Connecting this to the Arduino now. So the first blue guy here I said was D2. So this guy plugs into the Arduino right there in D2. Like that. And this guy plugs into D3. So if you notice me moving the wires right now, it's moving these guys up and down. That's the whole purpose of having the glue there. This way you don't put any stress onto those pads. Okay, ground. So you can get ground from underneath the quad. If you're using a Beck on your cx20 and you still have this old cable here, you can just use this. The next step, we're going to be programming it, plus we're going to be calibrating the ESC. So you don't have to do it this way, but it's better to. Another option is just to grab one of these guys if you have a spare one, find a ground on your APM, and just run it from the APM to the ground pin here. I believe you might be able to use your -1 cable, the one with only the 1 wire. It might have 3, but you can take that one off possibly. But anyways, I'm going to be using this guy here. So plug the black wire Make sure it's the black one, into ground, and then kind of put this over here to the side. Alright, with the Arduino connected to the ESC, plug in your battery. Go into my package folder, go back into step 2, and open up this guy again. One of the options you can do right off the bat too is go to options and disable this guy here. What you want to do now is read the setup and make sure it's being read. So here it's going to say this. For your Virgin ESC, what it's going to say is that there's a write protection. Do you want to install blheli? And just say yes. So here I'm just going to say okay. For you would most likely be yes. And what happens after you push yes, it's going to load up this guy here, and it's going to have a long list of ESCs like this. So you have an option. If you see my two files here, you can either click on the B if you have the B ESC or the 4B. Again, it's extremely important that you put the right one on. Right now, so it's important that you put on the right one. But let's say it doesn't show up here. What you want to do is click on ignore the list and pick a file. And then go into my folder called cx20 ESC Firmware, and then pick the right one. So this guy here is the B, so I'm going to double click on this. If it gives you a warning that this is not compatible or something weird like that, just say yes. So say yes here. Say okay. We're going to say no here then, just to show you, because most likely you won't have these settings yet. Right, so here's the defaults here. Everything by the default should work fine. You can play around with some of this stuff. The most important one is this guy here. Just turn it off, and then right away write setup. Say okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is calibrate the ESC. If you're already all plugged into your cx20 or whatever, and all the wiring's still the same, that's the way I'm going to show you. Otherwise, you can just do it right through the receiver itself as well. But I'm going to turn on my remote. I'm going to arm the quad. It's going to get a little noisy here. I'm going to say I'm going to restart the ESC quickly. It makes that. Push up, then push back down. It should be making that sound there. Alright, so it's all good. So now we can read the setup to see if this changes. And it did. So that's awesome, it worked. Alright, so the next thing we're going to want to figure out is the motor direction. So you have a couple of options with the motor direction. So say if you put a red light where a green used to be, so you have two red lights and the motor spinning in different ways because of the wiring or something like that. So you should know which way your motors turn. This one's on the back right, so this would be number 4. Number 4 turns clockwise. So say if it's turning the wrong way, which we'll check right now, see if you can see it or not. Alright, so say if it doesn't do anything after you just done the calibration, most likely you're going to have to restart the ESC. Alright, so I restarted it, now it's fine. So right now it is turning the right way. So say if it isn't, you can do it the old way where you just swap two of these wires around. Or what you can do now is in the software itself, under motor direction, just click on reverse. And then push, well first you have to read it. Alright, so I'm connected again. So now go to reversed, write your setup. What I forgot to show you last time is you have to restart the ESC. So restart the ESC. So I'm going to arm the quad. And now the motor should be turning the other way. Now it should be going this way. See? It's hard to tell. Actually, in the camera it looks like it's going this way, but it is in fact going the other way now. So that's kind of neat that you can change it. So I'm going to read the setup again and change it back the right way. And just confirm it's turning the right way again. Alright. So what you can do alternatively here is run the 2 wires out the hole here. I just moved this light over here. This way I could test the software, the firmware. I ended up not even using the screws at the end. I was just taping up the arms and went through 2 rolls of tape. So again, a huge thanks to Drew for sending me his ESC. So thanks to anybody else as well if they actually did send one. It's just taken a little while to get here. And yeah, so I'll show you guys it flying. And I haven't done all the 4 motors yet. I've done 2 of them, but not all 4. And yeah, so it's totally up to you guys. I take no warranty or guarantee that this is going to work for you. Be careful, because like I said, if you screw up the firmware, it can catch the motor on fire or the ESC on fire. And like I showed you that at the beginning of the video. So just take your time, be careful, and it's a fix. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Alright, so I'm going to plug in the quadcopter here. I just taped it up today. So what's going to happen is you're going to notice this one's spinning a little bit slower. So you might be able to turn up the power to 1 in blheli to make this one spin. But I haven't spent that too much time with that software yet. It's pretty good software, but I'm pretty new to it. So I'll show you guys this flying really quickly. So if it happens to come towards you or whatever, you still might have to play with the motor timing. Guess it helps if I turn on a remote. Has a little wind here too, so we'll see. So I'll show you what I mean about the motor not starting the first time. Now watch the one in the back. It takes a little bit longer for that one to start spinning, but after that it should be fine. I can hear my tape. Hopefully my tape doesn't fall off. So I was being lazy. Always my battery's almost dead. Okay. Oh, I don't have a satellite yet. Huh. Right, so I just want to show you guys it working. I was going to show you in GPS hold, but it's too cloudy. It's not getting a thing for some reason. And it's windy. So I'll show you right now, it's flying that way like that. But if I turn the quad this way, see how it's still flying that way? It's just the wind. So I'll turn it this way. So now it's still taking off that way. So it's not the motor, it's just the wind. Alright guys, again, thanks for watching. I really hope this helps a lot of you guys out and we can finally put an end to having to buy the new ESCs. And the bonus is you get blheli. Woo.